Well, thanks for joining us for the Emergency Relief Community Sport and Recreation Grant webinar. A little bit of introduction. My name is Tommy Wharton. I'm the Senior Project Lead on this emergency grant at the Ontario Sport Network. And I'm joined today by with David and with Bianca. I'll just pass it over to them, just do a short little introduction.
Bianca, ladies first.
Oh, thank you. So I am with Ontario Sport Network. I'm the manager for the National Sport Trust Fund and Digital.
Oh, and cool. I'm David Siegel, and I'm vice president of an ad agency called Impact North, and we do a lot of work for Ontario Sport Network, and that includes that we put together this entire application program digitally. So basically, I'm like the tech support in a sense.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. I have a decent idea how crucial that is.
If you don't mind my asking, what sport are you affiliated with?
Canoe kayak, sprint canoe kayak.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I used to go to summer camp, and kayaking and canoeing was like my jam.
Oh, okay. But not at a canoe club, right?
No. It was a summer camp up on Lake Couchiching in Aurelia.
Okay. Well, I know Aurelia. Yeah. we were hoping to live there for a little while, so we went for a couple of weeks and just hung out. Yeah.
It's lovely up there. Absolutely lovely.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
So I can just do a little bit more of a background, and I'm going to pass it over to David. I really like his idea of doing more of an interactive sort of flip through the grant application. So just a bit of background, like today you're going to learn about the how, the what, and the why, if you will, Sarah. But a little bit of background about this grant specifically. It's this funding is provided by the Government of Ontario, specifically the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, Culture, Industries, and it's a one-time application based financial relief fund targeting community-level sport and recreation organizations, clubs, teams, leagues, and associations who have sustained losses through the impacts of COVID. Linked to this, there's also a grant that has been distributed to the respective provincial sport organizations and MSOs, respectively. So this announcement came out on about March 8th. So there is a grant with your specific sport. For example, Canoe Kayak Ontario and the Sprint Racing affiliated division, they will have member clubs that will apply through that stream and that grant. This particular grant is for sports clubs, recreational activities that are outside the normal PSO MSO stream, if that makes sense. This is a very, very unique grant. It's not been done before. Typically, funding opportunities by the government is always offered through the PSO and MSO channels, but through this grant, we're going to be able to support sports like dance, cheerleading, breakdancing, euchre, pickleball, you name it, as well as some leagues as well that have sustained substantial financial losses because of COVID.
So am I in the wrong info?
Can you tell us a little bit about, are you the PSO yourself?
No. I'm just I run one of the clubs in Canoe Kayak Ontario. So
which club is that, if you don't mind me asking?
We're pretty new. We started in 2016. We're on the east end of Ottawa, Petrie Island Canoe Club.
Well, that's a really good question. One of our eligibility is you have to be, you can't be a member of your respective PSO, except for a couple conditions, namely because that respective grant that the PSO is going to go online and apply, it is for their member organization. So I don't know particularly if you are, but
our provincial coach hasn't announced it yet, but that doesn't mean a whole lot because they're very busy at training camp right now, and they won't be back for another week and a half.
Is that Ryan Blair?
Yep.
Yeah, I know him well. Yeah. So I used to work at CSIO. So yeah, no Ryan. And is it still Orist is the executive director, or has he moved on?
Yes, Orist is still around.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would be maybe right after this webinar, you could go to I think it's called the Ontario Sprint Canoe Kayak Racing Affiliation, that website.
Yep. OCSRA. Yep.
Yeah. And then sort of see have they launched it yet? To be honest, Sarah, there has been Some of these went, because the announcement happened on March 8th. Some PSOs were very quick, within days, putting up their application. Some have yet to do it. Myself and Dave and Bianca and the rest of the OSN team, we've been doing this 24/7 for what, 10 days since the announcement. So there is a probability, there could be a chance that and it's good that we're catching this live, that the correct stream for your respective application will be through the PSO.
Okay.
But if it's okay, if you want to still sit on this one, we'll walk you through our grant.
Sure.
Is that okay? So I think the big piece, David, to maximize this time is to open up your shared screen, and we can run through the application.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm not sure if you've been on Ontario Sport Network's website, but when you go to the home page, the first thing that you see is a slider for Emergency Relief Community Sport Recreation Grant, which you can either click Apply Now, or you could just click on the grant button at the top. And that brings you into a page that has all sorts of information about the eligible organizations, ineligible organizations, our review and assessment process, grant criteria, as well as obviously just information about these webinars, and then some frequently asked questions about, again, more about who applies or how it applies or what it's being used for, and so on and so forth. So once you've gone through all that information, like Tommy said, after the webinar, you might want to look at that. Then you can go to that specific website and you can see what they have to say. But then clicking here to submit, it brings you into the login screen, which it looks like this. The login screen, if you have not got an account, then you're going to sign up for a new account. If you do have an account, you're going to log back in. So when you go to sign up, it just asks you for your basic information, your first name, your last name, your email address, confirm your email address, your mobile phone number, your password. It asks you to make a somewhat complicated password for security, and then confirm password, create an account. The second you click create an account, it'll say, thank you very much. We're going to send you an email just to verify your account. You'll get an email with a link in your email address, and then that'll bring you back in so that you can log back into the profile. And from there, you're going to complete your profile.
I think I actually have a profile for.
Perfect. So you've already done it. I think you're further than my test account here. So I'm just going to, I'm going to create this stuff here. I'm going to make it for a slow pitch organization. And I'm going to say that I've been doing this since 2016. Now, if you're a member of multiple organizations, if you represent multiple organizations, you can actually put in multiple organizations so that you can do all your applications from the one single account. But again, don't worry about that. You're already in. So you've already done this where you've done the privacy and you've agreed to it. Click this little guy. And obviously now you're into the point where you could say, okay, let's do the application. So we're going to go ahead and submit a new application. So having signed up and put all of your information into the profile, like I did my little organization there, Thornhill Slow Pitch, I select Thornhill Slow Pitch. In answer to the question of does this apply to you, I guess these are the first 4 questions, 5 questions, I suppose, that qualify you. So, I mean, the first thing is does your organization being a community level sport and recreation organization, club, team, league, or association, deliver and is responsible for operations of sport and recreation in Ontario? So you're in Ottawa? The answer, yes, I believe, is yes. I will provide full end of year financial statements from 2019 to 2021, show revenues, cash balances, proof of loss, etc. If my organization cannot present year-end financial statements, I will be able to present receipts and invoices that demonstrate costs incurred due to the pandemic. So would you be able to do that?
Yeah, we have good financial records. We always do. Yeah.
Excellent.
Year end. That's great. That's awesome.
Now this one here, Tommy, I'm just going to let you take this one from the top.
No problem. So this is the one that directly applies to you. It's my organization is not currently a member of a provincial sport organization or a multi-sport organization. So again, whether it's the sport of swimming or diving or canoe kayak, respectively, there's a pot of funding that the ministry has distributed to the PSOs, and frankly, it's a large pot. It's $20 million But when it gets split up between the 64 different PSOs and MSOs,
it's a lot smaller.
It is. And I've seen a range of $700,000 for, again, this is on the website, you can see it, for soccer, for example, because it's got massive participation rates, 600,000 for a sport like swimming or figure skating, and then down to like 300,000 for smaller organizations. I think the smallest amount is in like the low 100s, I think. But then again, when that gets distributed to, let's say it's a sport like diving and there's 50 clubs, the amount of funding available in terms of COVID relief is less. But it's this particular one where, you may, just being honest, I think you wouldn't be able to click that if you were a member of Canoe Kayak Ontario, which I think you are, because if you're running,
because I pay them fees.
You pay them fees, exactly. And if you have coaches that require safe sport training or officials, all that, you're a member of your organization. And what we're doing with this, and it's good that this is getting videotaped, we're also going to cross-reference with all the respective PSOs who applies and gets the funding from the PSO, because you're not allowed, I hate to use the word double dip, but you're not allowed to apply for that grant and apply for this grant. This grant is to capture this wide spectrum of activity and recreation, community sport in the province that is not captured by the PSO stream. So in the announcement on March 8th with the minister, she specifically highlighted dance and what was the other sport, Bianca?
Cheerleading.
Yeah, dance and cheerleading, because they do not have a recognized provincial body.
They seem like they're big enough, so they should. And if they wanted to fall into safe sport rules, then that would be a very good idea.
I think that's coming the future for sure, because what this grant is showing is the wide spectrum that is sport and recreation in the province, and potentially a different model is maybe needed because it exists outside the PSO MSO stream. So I think that classically in the past, PSOs and MSOs have been defined by, do you compete in the Canada Games, Ontario Games, the Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, look more like higher level high performance. We're realizing there's a whole new activity base, right? So that first bucket may be hard. When I read a bit further, it highlights two specific PSOs, Ontario Grappling and Ontario Racquetball, and that's because they do not receive a specific band of funding from the ministry, and we've been instructed by the ministry to make sure that we can capture them for this relief grant. And then the last bucket is almost
easy peasy.
Sorry?
The last one is easy. My organization can demonstrate. Yeah.
Yeah, no. That next, but in the sentence is my lead gate receipt. So this is capturing some potential of, for example, some large team sport leagues. It could be lacrosse, it could be rugby, it could be hockey, where not professional, but the level below, where the grant available for from their
spectator
respective PSO
sports. Yeah,
exactly. And smaller, like not like high level like the NBA or Major League Soccer, but the tier below, where the grant available through the respective PSO will not be reflective of potentially their loss and their need to sustain their programming. So it's a pretty wide remit that this grant does cover. But without a doubt, if you're a member of a PSO, a member club, you go through that stream, and we really want to make sure that's followed. So we'll be working closely with the PSOs on that. But it's
so I should shoot Ryan an email and say, 100%. Hey, what's up?
I actually just looked on their website and I didn't see anything.
No, he's busy with training camp.
Yeah. And I don't want to flag them because there's been some other PSOs as well. I try to look at the whole sector that they haven't put it live yet. They've probably been, it's been year end as well. A lot of the sports, their year end is March 31st. And, I know the deadline though, for all the sports is the money needs to be out the door by May 31st. So, there's still, it's getting there though, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think, I think Canoe Kayak has enough of a membership base that this application should be going live soon. But you know what?
They're going to happen to have the provincial one that will go out to, okay, just check it.
To be fair, we've been looking, our team here has been looking what has been, and there's a spectrum, but what the PSOs have been putting up. And we're kind of, ours is a bit, I hate to use the word sophisticated, but ours is a little bit more, there's a little more detail in ours just because the breadth that we'll be capturing, but the same basic principles will apply, Sarah, which is you're going to need to demonstrate financial need. So the production of financial records from 2019 pre-pandemic to now, and seeing the differential, that will be key, as well as demonstrating, most of the PSO applications are also saying, so if you get this funding, let's say it's 3,000, 5,000, 2,000, 10,000, what are you going to do with the funding? And we'll go through our application coming up, and just after I finish talking, we're going to say that too. So if you get this funding, what are you going to apply it to? What are your priorities? What's your plan and strategy to maximize this opportunity for your organization? Because it's not just about funding and just giving out money. We want to know the strategy, and it is going to be a competitive process. For our application, we're probably going to get 500 to 2,000 applications. We're going to get a large bandwidth potentially. In the canoe kayak world, it's probably just going to be the clubs, but it may be competitive as well, right? So you're way ahead of the game. You're almost ahead of the PSO right here in terms of listening to what we're talking about financial need and a plan of how to optimize that funding. But and again, if you just go through this, I'm going to hand it over to David, but it's going to be similar to this. You're going to have to demonstrate that you need financial need, and then one of the following applies, if not all, on number 5. David, over to you, just with the.
So number 5, yep, you got your 5 choices here in regards to one of the following applies: increased operating costs related to the pandemic, reduction of members and membership revenue during the pandemic. That's going to be a common one. Increased facility costs required to comply with the Reopening Ontario 2020 and its regulations. And again, just in case you want to glance at this, these are all links to the definition and the Ontario pages about PSO, MSO, Reopening Ontario 2020. If you click on those, it brings them up in a new window, just for information purposes. Yep. Opening deficits to maintain programming for operating deficits to maintain programming for fewer participants. And then if there's something that's not captured by any of those 4, please describe. So we'll just, for mine purposes, we'll just leave it at this. Now, if any of these are unchecked, it will not let you continue. So again, if anything that you leave unchecked, it will highlight and it will say, okay, something's missing here. Great, I've got to select that. I understand that the emergency relief fund administered by the OSN is to provide financial support for activities and programming not previously supported by other grants. So yes, save and continue. So this here is where we just start putting in some of the basic information about your clubs. So if you do end up participating with this, and you're going to put in if you're profit or not for profit, and then you're going to describe if you're a club, recreational association, sport academy, league, sports association, sports team, or other. If you're a club or a sports team and you click, it's going to ask what league you're in. So in this case, that doesn't apply to you. I guess it would possibly be a recreational association, or you might be other. And if you're other, you can certainly describe exactly what you are. So in this case, I'm just going to say rowing club. So if your organization has received any other funding, grants, or relief from any municipal, provincial, or federal programs, i.e. CERB, CEWS, SECRA, SEBA, please describe the nature of the support, or you can just write NA if not available. So I guess, again, it's telling a little bit of a story about if you've already gotten something, obviously, making sure everything is pretty straightforward. Please provide some history, highlights, or accolades of your organization. So this is a place where you get to have a little bit of fun, put in a little bit of the bragging, a little bit of bragging. Yeah, you might say something along the lines of, we set the world record for speed up and down the Ottawa River. We were able to go 3 kilometers in an hour, whatever it is.
Highly unlikely.
Why is that river a hard one to paddle on?
No, it's highly unlikely that we would set the world record. Like
too recreational.
No, we have like kids who have so far we've only managed to be a feeder club, but we're looking to make the jump and start having a big enough, start to have a big enough training group so that kids can just stay here and keep developing. So far, like, kids get to be 15, 16. And if they're doing all right, they're training hard, I send them to Rideau, because they have a big training group there and they can actually compete against other people in the training group and have access to a lot more resources. So I do the best I can. And then when they start looking like athletes, I pass them on.
We do everything we can to get them to Rideau.
That is not our mission statement, by the way.
Yeah. So don't worry. Obviously, this is just me doing a demo. None of this is going to reflect at all. But you get 250 words, and there's a nice little counter that tells you how many you've actually got left. So then you go into your organization mailing address. So I'm just going to use my personal address just for fun. Obviously, that's just for you put in at the beginning your personal address. Now this is like where does the organization operate from? So this is also,
yeah,
and it's probably the same. In most cases, it'll be the same, but this will give us a nice little heat map as well to be able to understand where in Ontario everybody's coming from, and that's just nice. I'm just going to put in rowingclub.com. If you don't have a website, you could certainly put NA, no problem.
I don't understand how anybody could survive without a website. But still, every now and then I find someone.
Sarah, you'd be amazed.
I always am. I'm like, how on earth does that even happen?
Yeah, it's incredible. Multi-sport, single sport, recreational activity or activities. So you basically put in, so let's just say if you're a rowing club, technically, like you said, canoeing and kayaking could technically count as two sports. So you could, now I don't know.
I believe it's one. Yeah, they're considered, yeah.
Yeah. So for the places that are multi-sport organizations, obviously they can put in their multiple sports. A single sport, we're going to put, canoeing. I'm going to put
canoeing's enough. You don't have to even put kayaking. Yeah.
And then we'll just put NA for the recreational as well. So we're going to say it's a sport. So then this is the fun one. So where you're located, give me a few of the places where some of your people come from. City or town.
Yeah, so Orleans is a reasonably large area. We have at least 120,000 people living in Orleans, and everybody's within a 15-minute drive of the club. But then we also have, like, Navan is a nearby community. We have people from almost Vars, actually, and we have people from Rockland, and from Cumberland isn't too far away, and from Gloucester.
Cumberland, Clarence,
Rockland, Navan.
Am I getting all these right so far? As you can.
Yeah, looks fine.
What else? The last one.
Gloucester.
Yeah, I think that was it. South Gloucester.
No, well, like it doesn't really matter. It's about the same distance either way.
Okay. So yeah, so obviously you can fill in all of the different places where your people come from and live. The more the merrier, the better, the more you can share, obviously the better. And then of course, now we start getting into some of the information about the organization itself. So how many paid full-time employees, 30 plus hours per week, were there in 2019 versus 2021? Because this is going to tell us a story. Back before COVID, how were you functioning? How are you functioning since? So I'll just pick up some numbers here. You can't include part-time or temporary staff under full-time. Under part-time, you can't have temporary staff. And then, of course, under volunteers, you're going to have admin and executives as well. So so
we have like no full-time.
Okay.
That's okay.
Because we're seasonal, and most of our coaches are like full-time during the summer. And then we have part-time staff during the winter.
So that's an interesting question, Tommy. For seasonal, because if
full-time,
people have full-time during one season where, around the clock, you got your people working 30 plus hours a week, and then the other season they're not working. How does that work from a reporting standpoint?
I know, because it
ramps up too. So as soon as like the end of April comes around, like we're on the water. So we're pulling a lot more hours, and then it just gets more and more towards the end of school. And then obviously July, August, we're super busy. And then we ramp down again. We come off the water end of October.
Yeah, like when we looked at that, like the sort of frame of reference there is year round, but that's not indicative of many experiences with summer/winter sport, right? Because if it was someone from Alpine would be doing the same thing, would they be saying winter it's ramped, summer not so much? I think what we're trying.
Skiing is extra compatible with canoe kayak. They are awesome athletes to have in our sport.
I think you know, and this is why it's good that we're having these webinars. This could actually be, David, I can put even though the frequently asked question is not the list that we have 17 is right now is not like, you know, page 3 of the application. We could maybe do a catch there, or
we can do a tooltip here. We can do a tooltip here where like we can do a hover. And we just have to define, like, so I mean, I'm just asking the question because I wouldn't know. I mean,
during normal operation, like what we want to do during peak operation, respectively,
peak
right?
Is a good word. Yeah.
Peak operation, you know, it's very rare that you have sports that are
all year
from January to December. The cadence of operation is consistent. It's like compressed, right? So peak, that's the hover. And again, I do think it's very good that we're having this, because the frame, myself, like we and David, we get into this, we know exactly how you should be answering it, but it's on fresh eyes, you may look and go, well, that means year round, right? No. But so just peak during programming. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And the same thing applies with part-time, because what we're trying to tell is the story of what happened with maybe attrition of staff, like you were not able to hold or keep staff. What happened to your staffing structure, knowing that some organizations do have actually a lot of full-time, some don't have any at all.
And like I guess I have a specific question, because we're a small club who's been growing steadily in a large neighborhood. We've just been growing by about 30% every year, and we basically, as many coaches as we can develop, that's how many coaches we hire, and that is our limitation for how many kids we can take. So if we were just to stagnate, to stay at about the same level, is that the same as a loss if we were previously in 30% year over year growth?
And again, what we're doing with this is this doesn't impact, like if you were eligible for this grant, it doesn't impact your in, your out. It's just trying to tell the story of what happened to your organization.
I would actually say that's a question best answered on step 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because we're going to get to something, because you're right on top of this, Sarah. So you've got good knowledge about this. Step 3 is going to answer that question, because that's the point where you're uploading numbers, but then you're also telling the story about what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll proceed there. So, I mean, number of volunteers, obviously, I'm making up numbers here. Who cares? Now, how many members or participants does or did your organization have? So again, from 2019, let's just say if it was, 50, 2020, it was 10. And in 2021, it's 30. Now, what you're saying essentially is let's just say, like, what we were growing. So even if we stayed the same here, does it tell the right story? So we'll get to that.
And it's, again, complicated things that, like, it's hard to tease out unless you have some room to explain it. But like the meat and potatoes of a canoe club, like the heart and soul of a canoe club are its full year members. Those are the families that build a club. So if we have 30 full year members in 2019, and we have the same number of full-time members this year, then we have not grown. Even if our other numbers are bigger, it means that we've stagnated.
Exactly. No, it makes sense. Okay. So moving on, we'll go, the last thing that they want to ask the question is OSM will not, so we're not going to collect or use or disclose any personal information beyond what is necessary to process applications, administer funding in accordance with requirements. We're just basically saying, like, we're just asking this. It's not going to make any difference. But the question is, you know, who do you provide sports or activities for? So you obviously mentioned, children and youth, and, you know, you might have adults, you might have everybody. You might literally say, listen, everybody is great. And even if there's more that aren't there, by all means.
We do provide services to people with special needs. So
perfect. So that's the next question. Yeah. And so the next question, persons with disabilities, potentially ethnic, religious minorities. So it's not just like, hey, you know, do you include, but it's also like, do you actually outreach? Do you actually like potentially bring them in? Do you design specifically for underserved groups as well? So, you know, we've got these groups here. And then of course you can always say other, or if none of the above, none of the above, no problem, right?
Yeah, I think we demonstrate our diversity on our board actually, and with our the people we hire. Anyway, so like our outreach isn't formalized, but it does produce results.
Good. So now we'll get to the part. Now this is probably going to be a little bit more answering your questions. So these are the financial submissions. So there are two options here for organizations based on their size and scope. So number one is if your organization has complete yearly financial statements, meaning audited year-end financials, approved year-end financials, financial review, et cetera, complete this section. And that section here is basically you've got your, you can upload your 3 files here. So your 2019 statements, your 2020, your 2021. So first of all, I'm not sure if your financial statements might refer to the previous growth or whatnot, but if it doesn't, that's okay. That's part of where you could tell the story. Obviously, we're telling the story again for these 4 different years. What were your total revenues in 2019, 2020, 2021? What were your total gate receipts, ticket sales? Must be consistent with your documents, obviously 2019, 2020, 2021. What were your annual sponsorship support? And then, of course, what was your organization's cash balance? So all of these things all together definitely tell a little bit of a story. Sorry, I'm in the wrong place here. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, cash balance is interesting because we tend to go very, very close to 0 between seasons. Like we just aim for the most growth we can possibly squeeze out.
And again, that's probably the most important. That's why it comes last. We'll be reading all the financials and looking what's inputted, but the cash balance at the end of the day and the journey from 2019 to 2021, this whole grant is predicated on this notion of need, right? Like what did the pandemic do to your operations, to your membership, to your staff, to your bottom line? And if you weren't able to run programming, or if you're, you did run some programming, but you had to buy additional PPE or cleaning, or the facilities were more expensive, whatever.
We actually have an issue that's kind of, again, falls in a gray area. The city has lost, they've lost spots. So our Y shut down during COVID, like our local Y, and we already were short on pool space. So now we have fewer facilities, and the facilities that are up aren't fully up and running. Like they haven't given swim lessons for, 3 years. So we have a deficit of kids who are at the right swim level to be able to pass our swim to survive test and be allowed to paddle. So we're in a position where we've asked the city, like, are you doing anything about this? And they said, basically, no. Do you want to do something about this? We've just received permission to run swim programs. We're a canoe club, but we do employ some lifeguards. So we're trying to decide whether or not to run swim programs at our club so that we can feed into our own system.
No, yeah, there's going to be a lot of different
stories
and challenges for sure. I'm just conscious of time here, but your questions have been fantastic, but we're just running you through like the application most likely that you'll see through your PSO will have some components of this. For sure, there will be this request around financial statements, but it may be a spectrum, Sarah, respectively. It may be because some smaller clubs may not have full-size financial statements, and so there's a second option of providing receipts, proof of invoices for costs
proper
incurred.
one. Yeah.
And so that's exactly. So option 2, if you didn't have all the financial statements, or if you felt like, listen, we only experience losses of, under $5,000, then you might say, okay, well, let's go to this one here, and we can select that option, and we can select our 3 files, which in this case can be JPEGs or GIFs or PNGs. So you can literally take pictures on your phone of these things, or submit PDFs, Excel files, etc.
So it's really flexible.
Yeah, so you literally pick one or the other. So in this case, I'll just go with the first one, save and continue. Oh, I didn't actually attach the files. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to attach my files. Oh, it cleared out. You know what? I'm sorry. When I flipped between the 2 options, it cleared it out. So I'm just going to put in numbers that make no sense here. Give me a sec.
We're almost there. We're on step 3. We're getting to step 4.
That's okay.
Now, step 4, this is also where you get to really tell some stories. So based on the information provided, so depending on the options that you picked on that previous screen, it's going to tell you that you're either part of a grant range where you could potentially be eligible for between $10,000 and $150,000. Again, it's not a confirmation of anything. It's just a preliminary estimate of eligibility. And then you're going to tell, if you pick one of those other 2 options, it could be up to 5,000, it could be up to 2,500. So here you answer the question, based on the financial and programming impacts of the last few years, to what extent are you able to return to pre-pandemic level of operations? So you're not at all able, like we're going to take up to a year because we need to pretty much rebuild from scratch. We're not very able, but within 6 months, we could be up and running. We're pretty able, somewhat able. We need like a month or 2 and we're up and running, or very able, like we can literally be back in action right away. So then we would say, well, please provide with detail your financial recovery plan and what your organization will be prioritizing on your journey back to full programming. So we have up to 500 words here, and you could most certainly be saying something in here about, in 2016, 2017, 2018, we were showing 30% growth every year. And then obviously we stagnated here. So even though our numbers may have shown that, we maintained 30 members, it was really us moving backwards in a sense. So we would be looking into, revitalizing and regrowing and making up for those years of loss or whatever the case is. So you've got the whole opportunity here to tell the story of exactly what happened and how you would do it. Right.
Cool.
So, and this is a test. And then of course, again, I'm going to put these are more words. This is, how does your organization positively affect your local community? You would tell the story about the kids. You would talk about the, obviously encouraging their love of water and getting them out there and paddling and building up great habits and so on and so forth. And then of course, if I'm successful and we receive a grant, I'm willing to provide photos and videos upon request, just to, it's just to basically say, like, if you're successful, we'd like to be able to say, hey, Sarah, tell us a little about yourself, and, get some potential.
That's fun. The kids like it too.
Oh,
yep.
Fantastic. So submit the application. So now it's submitting everything and we're done. So it takes us back to the applications page where you could submit a new application for a different organization, but not the same one.
And the money has to go out by the end of May?
Yeah, May 31st. We're actually going to provide a list to the ministry of eligible applicants towards the end of May, like the sort of third, fourth week. And we will be notifying successful applicants by the end of May. And then we're going to be putting checks out second week in June, just because the number of people we believe that are going to apply is going to be extremely high. Can I do a screen share, David? I just want to do one last thing here, because this is the one that I really want to focus in on, Sarah, with your specific situation. This is a news release from the ministry. So if you just go onto the Government of Ontario's website and you just type in, the ministry is Heritage Sport Tourism Culture Industries, you'll see this is from the 8th of March, and this is the specific piece. So $30 million was announced that day. Again, very, very exciting. 20 million to recognize provincial sport organizations and multi-sport organizations, such as soccer, karate, and volleyball, those and the other 63 PSOs. And then this is the one that we just described today, 7 million to OSN for community-based sport and recreation organizations, dance and cheerleading. And then there's 3 million because of the situation with tuition with the OHL players. So, just want to highlight, I think if you wanted to send a link or just sort of say, if anyone's viewing this webinar too and their PSO has not done the application yet, this is what you're referring to, is the 20 million.
Yep.
But, today you were able to actually provide some really good insight and questions, and really thank you for that. Even though you may not be the fit for this grant, your situation is quite similar. And I think, you're ahead of the game, because it seems like you have all the information needed for that grant when it comes out for you.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people who have very complex issues, including just loss of spaces to work out in. That was a huge issue for us.
Yeah, like gyms shutting down and things.
Yeah,
things
my
like
basement
that.
is now the club gym.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this application, is we actually, because it's nonprofit and for-profit, there'll be probably a lot of potentially some applications from gyms, CrossFit gyms, that type of thing, that were closed for periods of time during the pandemic, and is an opportunity for us to see their applications and potentially assist them.
And inquire if they want to donate to the Kennedy's gym.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there any sort of final comments, David, from your end?
No, from my end, I appreciate, Sarah. I mean, you know what? One person is still a great audience, and you were wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the personalized service.
There you go.
It's very kind.
There you go. Well, all the best. And again, thanks for taking the time, and you have a great evening.